morning. Welcome to the 2016 City Director Candidate Forum, sponsored by the Coalition of Little Rock Neighborhoods and recorded at City Hall this morning. It will be broadcast on the Little Rock Television Cable Channel 11 this election season several times. Our coalition wishes to thank City Manager Bruce Moore and his staff, in particular Scott Carter, Jennifer Godwin, Wendell Dorman, and Joe Davis, who worked with the coalition to make this forum a reality. This forum will be broadcast on dates to be announced. I'm Kathy Wells. I'm from the Downtown Neighborhood Association. I'm the current president. I'll be your timekeeper. Our moderator is Denise Innett, Vice President of the Downtown Neighborhood Association.
Welcome for taking part of this forum this morning. In our format, each candidate makes an opening statement of 3 minutes and a closing statement of 2 minutes. The timekeeper will hold up a sign at the last 30 seconds. 4 questions are used for those prepared in advance and kept secret from the candidates. Each candidate has 1 minute to answer. 2 follow-up questions are asked and replies are 1 minute each. For this forum, we have candidates for the at-large position number 9. We have Director Fortson, we have Jason Ferguson, and we have Dr. Clayton Johnson. Excuse me.
Let us begin the opening statement with Director Fortson, please.
Thank you, Kathy, and my thanks to the Coalition for sponsoring this forum and for the opportunity for us to meet and answer your questions. I am Gene Fortson. I am the incumbent in position 9 at-large director for the City of Little Rock, and I'm seeking re-election this year because I want to continue what progress we have already in place in the City of Little Rock. There's a lot good going on. There are a lot of things of which we can be proud. There's still work to be done, but there are a lot of areas in which progress is being made. For example, in quality of life and jobs, we've just in the past 3 months seen the opening of a new Federal Express building in Southwest Little Rock, which has jobs for 175 people and headquarters for 400 drivers. This creates increased tax base, increased job opportunities for our citizens. You've seen the construction of the Outlet Mall, which brings 600 full and part-time jobs to Little Rock, but more importantly, increases the tax base, which enables us to provide more services while keeping taxes at the same level. And of course, you read recently about the Envoy expansion out at the airport, in which American Airlines has 60 high-paying jobs for airline construction. In quality of life also, I'm very proud that we're going to be cutting the ribbon next month on the new $70 million expansion of the Robinson Center. As a member of the Advertising and Promotion Commission and chairman of the Finance Committee, it's been our job to supervise that construction. I'm very proud to say that will be opened on time and in budget next month. There's also a big expansion going on at the Arts Center. There are many areas in which public art is being added to the city, all to improve our quality of life. As far as living daily, we've just laid 6 miles of new sidewalk in the past 2 years. We're completing 64 road and drainage projects throughout the city, all designed to improve lifestyle and quality in the city of Little Rock. In the area of public safety, we are working to increase our police force back to its normal staffing level. We're short right now, and we are working as rapidly as we can to hire additional policemen. We've just finished a graduate class of some 29 new police officers on the street, and the academy now has a second class underway. We're still some 50 short. Now, crime has become a big issue, and I'm sad to report that crime is up from what it has been in the past year. But one good thing is that the increase is only 2.5% over the very lowest year we've had in 25 years. My time is about up, but I want to close by reminding you that good things are happening in Little Rock. I'm asking to be reelected to another term to continue the progress in this city. Thank you.
Next, we have Jason Ferguson.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you to everyone who's here this morning and the coalitions that make this event possible. Public service is important, and I know that you all are volunteering your time and making this information in the candidate forum available to the public. A few things. The reason I am running for office for city director here in Little Rock is that I'm concerned that sometimes when we are in an institution, whether it be city government or a hospital or a church or whatever, that we sometimes have a kind of a myopic perspective, and that we don't get the opportunity to hear ideas from folks outside of the institution. You know, I'm trained as a clinical chaplain and work at UAMS doing this. Also pastor a church in Sherwood. And the key job of a clinical chaplain, which is a $5 way of saying you've been to seminary and you've been trained in psychotherapy as well, is that when I go in to see a patient, the worst thing I can do is come in and say, hey, Ms. Jones, tell me how you're feeling today, because I've set the agenda. And I think it suits them better and serves the people of Little Rock or patients at a bedside when I say, tell me what's going on. Because that way, if someone's in the hospital and they want to talk about how they're going to feed their kids if they're there for 3 months, they can talk about that. As a candidate, one of the things that I've been doing is I've been doing a listening tour. I've been going around to churches and different groups. I have other neighborhood organizations in the city that I plan to contact to do that. And if I get the chance to serve in the status as a city director, I will continue that. Because, you know, for me to sit here and act like and say I've got all the answers for all of the problems regarding that are facing the city of Little Rock would be pretty egocentric. And I think in public service overall, and not specifically the city board, that a problem that we have today is if we've got too much ego and not enough civility, too much ego and not enough love. You know, one of the ways you would say that in a political forum is what's in the, you know, the common good for everybody involved in the process. Well, I think that to be able to truly understand and know that, you've got to be able to go to those folks and say, tell me what is going on. For me to tell the Little Rock Police Department that I've got the answer for a crime in Little Rock would be ludicrous. I think we need to talk to citizens. I think we need to talk to the police force. I think we just need to make sure that we are connected, because this is not about, I don't think it's about solely, I think it's partially about the number of jobs that we create. I don't think it's so much about, I think it's, while it's partially about jobs created, I think it's about quality jobs and giving people the opportunity to flourish and not fester in the future as they go forward in the city of Little Rock. Thank you.
Dr. Clayton Johnson?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you to the Coalition for the opportunity to have this forum. My name is Dr. Clayton Johnson, and here's some of the reasons why I believe you should vote me in as your new at-large city director, particularly in the areas of leadership. I've already been certified by the City Hall as having the qualities of to hold this position, because I was in the same room as your present director in 2006 when they interviewed applicants for the position that he took when Barbara Graves resigned. But furthermore, I've led in the leadership positions of the Neighborhood Association President, Coalition of Little Rock Neighborhoods, Little Rock Connections. I was lucky enough to work with Doris Wright when Mayor Daley appointed me to the Codes Review Commission, and I served as head of the Willie Hinton Oversight Committee and had that facility listed on the historical registry. As far as jobs go, I have a PhD in cellular and molecular biology. I have 20 years' experience bench research in basic and advanced medical research. I've experience with all kinds of technology. In that aspect, I attended a recent forum held by the mayor for entrepreneurship, and quite frankly, I think I was the only person there that in any way might have represented the city board discussing how we can develop entrepreneurship in the city. Public safety. I've been voicing my concern to the city for a number of years now about their lack of response to the chronic level of crime, elevated level of crime in this city, and that came from my efforts in my own neighborhood to reduce my home burglaries from 3 to 5 to almost 0 at this time. And that partly came from my efforts to push forward with the city manager to cap and close the crime-infested Valley Heights apartment complexes on Cantwell Road. I worked with Ken Richardson during his 12th Street initiative, and I helped push through the construction of the 12th Street Police Station. A lot of people don't know that. I worked on the quality of life. I believe I'm more neighborhood-oriented. I worked many years to recover my neighborhood and revitalize it, and part of that was our neighborhood park, Meriwether Park. I was instrumental in its recovery, and I invite you to come out and look at it. It's a very nice and jewel park in the city now. Many people of the city come into that park. I worked with Bobby Roberts directly and indirectly in his expansion of the library system and the building of the Children's Library off of Jefferson Road. And finally, in service, I've worked on a number of elections. I've worked on the jail tax, the full-time mayor initiative, and the city sales tax. But most important, in my retirement, I got certified as a teacher, and I've been working with at-risk kids and as a high school teacher for the last 5 or 6 years. So what I see, ladies and gentlemen, is you have a choice now. You can vote for the old and vote for your present director and get reactive leadership, or you can vote for new directions, vote for me, and get proactive leadership. Thank you. I ask for your vote on November 8th.
We will alternate which one replies first as we move through our questions. On our question panel, we have 2 coalition delegates who will introduce themselves. Whitney Patterson.
My name is Whitney Patterson. I am the Central High Neighborhood Association president. Welcome.
Thank you.
Sheila
Thank you.
Miles.
My name is Sheila Miles. I serve as the president of the Wright Avenue Neighborhood Association.
Thank you.
Question 1 comes from Sheila Miles.
How will you support the 12th Street Corridor Jumpstart Program, redevelopment, and quality of life issues in the surrounding neighborhoods?
Dr. Clayton Johnson.
That's been one of my issues on the quality of life. I worked directly on the initiation of the 12th Street Revitalization Project, and I really think that it's been taking much longer to revitalize 12th Street than it is taking to revitalize Main Street. And part of that is because the city, in their tax increase and their capital funds improvement, decided to divide that money equally amongst the 7 wards. I hold a different position. I think the city should be putting their money where they have the greatest needs, and they clearly have the greatest needs on 12th Street. So I understand that they have needs in the other part of the city, but it's just smart investment to put your money where you have the greatest needs and you'll get the biggest bang for your buck, and that's where I think should be put.
Whitney Patterson.
No, each hand replies.
I'm sorry. Jeff Ferguson.
Who?
Jason Ferguson.
There you go. That's all right. I've been called a lot worse than that. I think it's a good question. Not specifically just the 12th Street area, but I think the city has played favorites, whether it's been intentional and whether there's been an agenda behind it or it's just the way things have happened. I think that there are absolutely, and this includes the 12th Street corridor, that have been underrepresented and underserved in the city. I think that all too often, with all due respect to a present member here on the board who I think has got a distinguished record of public service, that there seems to be a representation that is made up of a coalition of board members that focus on those who sent them, and a lot of the city gets left out. And so I think there needs to be more listening and hearing and sitting down and figuring out what's going to best serve all the citizens of Little Rock, not just certain sectors.
Director Fortson.
I was one of those who joined with Ken Richardson in passing the ordinance that started the 12th Street revitalization. And our plan was that we'd have a center of community activity in that location. There is space there for retail services that candidly has not been filled. We presently have a task force as well as a commercial realtor who is given the job of trying to find a bank, maybe a food service area, and a grocer to come into that location, because the initial plan was to start the revitalization with the police station and then auxiliary services. At the other end of the corridor, you have the children's library, which Bobby Roberts has developed, and the hope was we would fill in the area. The goal is still there, the plan is there, and we're working hard to make sure we can bring that entire concept into fruition.
Whitney Patterson. Question.
Just go ahead.
Arkansas is the only state without a law setting a warrant of habitability standard for rental units. Do you support state legislation to require a warrant of habitability from landlords setting minimum health and safety standards for rentals?
Jeff Ferguson. Jason Ferguson.
Yep. My name is Jason Ferguson. That's okay, Denise. I'm not upset. I just want to make sure folks out there know I'm Jason Ferguson. I am for statewide standards. I think that while I am not overall in favor of the state mandating what municipalities do, I think that's an area in which it's a slippery slope. But I do think that as someone who has lived in rental properties, someone who's been involved with some management of rental properties, that there are folks who have tenants' best interest in mind, as well as making sure not only that they take care of tenants, but also that they, they're in the business to make money, but make sure that the properties they provide are going to take care of those families and that they're safe. And I think we need some standards. And I think that it needs to be a partnership not made up of just state legislators. I think it needs to be of folks who are citizens. Thank you.
Dr. Clayton.
And the Director Fortson. Are we going the other way now?
We're going the other way now.
This way? Okay. As far as the habitability goes, yes, I think that we should in fact have a habitability issue, or state statute actually. But furthermore than that, I think that a lot of people don't know, there's part of the Codes Review Commission, what I was overseeing was that we have an ordinance in this city that says that every rentals property in this city should be inspected at that time every year. So at that time, when I sat on the Oversight Committee, basically I said, fine, you can't do it in 1 year. Tell me when you can do it. And they said 2 or 3 years. And what I said was, in the end, you tell me the time, because I don't want to hear any excuses about how you can't get it done. Just recently, they had to have another committee oversee this, and they still haven't been able to inspect apartment complexes or rental properties in this city. So the city's not even following its own ordinance. So I'm not sure how they're going to end up being able to carry the state statute, if there is one, from habitability. But yes, there does need to be a habitability statute on record where people can't be rented junk houses that are not livable.
Time.
Director Fortson.
I would prefer that we solve our problems locally rather than leave them to the state legislature, but the entire question of acceptability of rental living quarters is a serious one in our city. Right now, we wind up with action in the court on a regular basis, closing small apartment complexes that are operated in a way as to be unfit for human habitation. The idea of expanding an inspection program in the city becomes a question of enough money to have enough inspectors to enforce an apartment inspection program on a regular basis. We do have some ordinances on the books. We are presently considering ordinances that would be stronger as far as what can be required, because so often an apartment complex is in good shape and managed well until ownership changes, and then our control has been lost and it deteriorates.
Next question will come from Sheila Miles.
If we have a follow-up question.
The proposed I-30 project would lead to widening Interstate 630, state officials say. And the neighborhoods, especially to the south, could suffer yet another assault on the fragile stability there. What would you do to protect these neighborhoods from any ill effects of highway widening?
Director Fortson.
Well, first, as you know, the I-30 project is a project of the Arkansas State Highway Department. When it was first announced, the city hired a consultant to give us assistance in how that project can be altered to better suit the requirements of our city. We've had several dialogues with the Highway Commission, and those of you who followed it are aware of some of the changes that have been made. There's still changes that need to be made, but one of the most critical is in the so-called collector-distributor lanes have been slowed down now from interstate speeds to city speeds, and there have been commitments to create boulevard-type landscaping along those, but there are still areas about connectivity between the east and west side of that freeway that need to be resolved. Final decision has not been made, but the city's obligation is to make certain the Highway Commission considers all of the needs of this city as they go forward with this project.
Mr. Ferguson?
It's a great question, and one that concerns me a great deal. I would be, first of all, let me say that and I said this the other night, I think the I-30 proposed project is a train wreck. I really do in a lot of ways. We don't know what transportation is going to look like in 25 years. I don't know that having a mode of transportation in which seems to be slipping away, we're looking at driverless cars now. State Farm is talking about getting out of the automobile insurance agents business because of we may not have drivers. As far as south, the neighborhood south, my concern is they're going to come in and build the highway, and that's going to tear down businesses, it's going to tear down homes, and it's going to put those who are living in an area that is already very, very fragile and is being propped up by a lot of community organizations that need help. So I think we need to look at a way that, I think we just need to look at a different idea altogether, because I don't think it's going to be help them flourish. I think it's going to help them fester as we go forward.
Dr. Johnson?
I've long made my standing on this clear. I'm against the I-30 expansion, but I oppose it for different reasons than other people. First of all, I can't see any reason why they're expanding that other than what it is nothing more than to give the people north of the city easier access to the city. There is no truck access on that. They use 440 and they use 40, or they use 430 to 40. They're not going to come through there, so it's only for driver traffic. So basically, what you're going to end up with, I went to many of the meetings, is once it's started, it can't stop. They're going to have to expand 630. They're going to have to expand 30. I was in a meeting the other day at the Pettyway Neighborhood Association where they're trying to set up a park and they want to close the street down right next to 630. I said, you're liable to run into trouble down the road. So really, this city cannot redevelop and fill in the density with car parks. They've got to have mass transit. What we really need is mass transit, not larger highways. We need more people and vehicles so we don't take up as much space on a highway.
Fine.
Thank you.
Next question from Whitney Patterson.
Recently, city directors defeated a proposal to require new police officers to live in Little Rock. One reason cited was the lack of moderate income housing in the city that new officers could afford at their starting pay. What will you do to overcome this lack of housing?
Mr. Ferguson?
I don't really know that you can do anything. I think the market controls, what real estate goes for. I don't know that there's anything that the city board can do to make sure that there's more moderate housing. The reason that so many police officers and firefighters live outside of the city is for that very reason. I mean, you can pay less for housing in Little Rock, but it seems to be, unfortunately, there's two tiers. There's wonderful housing, you know what I'm saying? There's a small batch of moderate housing, but a lot of it's occupied, and there's a lot of poor housing, and folks don't want to live in it. So I really don't know that you can do a lot as a board member, to do that. I think you can offer incentives to developers to maybe build housing that's more moderate and affordable that a policeman could live in. But other than that, I don't know that there's a lot you can do.
Director Forson?
Well, the inquired question of affordable housing is one that has been discussed some over the past year. Not just affordable housing for potential city employees, but for people who need to move into this city to create more jobs and a more vibrant city. There are 2 or 3 city programs that can help. We have a land bank program where condemned property can be ultimately restored by title going to the land bank and then sold for redevelopment for people at an affordable level. We also can encourage development of infill housing in areas in the downtown area, especially where we have some areas where there are vacant areas that can be served by infill housing. Anything we can do to encourage construction of more housing and to encourage more people to move into the inner city, I think benefits the growth of our city.
Dr. Johnson?
This goes back to a number of issues that we had already discussed already. As far as affordability goes, we probably have places that are already affordable. The problem is they're just not livable. So they don't have they're not up to standards that anybody wants to rent them. And so the point was made earlier. The city needs to take